Hi and welcome to Market Vision's Conversations. Today we have Manish Jain with us. Manish and I worked together briefly during my Money Yoga days of building algo trading systems in Bombay, or Mumbai as it's called. According to Manish's Twitter profile, which is at MR Jain, he loves cars, technology, finance, fitness, and a certain fruit from Cupertino, California. Moved to India 5.5 years ago to focus on technology-driven businesses, and his latest venture is MProfit, which is a desktop portfolio management software. Welcome, Manish, to the show. I was just going to say welcome, MR Jain, but that's just technology.
Right. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Deepak. Thanks for the glowing intro. I couldn't have said it any better. But yeah, we've been talking about doing this for quite some time, and it's finally actually happening, so it's good.
Yeah, you bet. This is great. Let's move on to the conversations. The first piece that I'd love to ask you. So, Manish, let's talk about three things today. And just to set up the format, we'll do three different topics at three different, about 5-minute intervals each, right? So, let's see what the feedback is and how people like it.
Sounds good.
Great. Yeah, the first thing, of course, technology trading, this stuff that you really like. What do you think of the state of technology and trading in India?
Well, I think more and more of it is actually coming together. I mean, if you look at maybe 5 years ago when I first got here, actually algo trading was not being done. And we were one of the first guys to actually do it. So we were basically trying to cobble everything together to make it work. But in 2008, they came out with direct market access. And I think we're seeing more and more people now actually using technology. Previously, the idea was, hey, labor's cheap. We can hire a lot of people to bang on keyboards and do the trades. Whereas now I think people realize, let's let the computers do it because they can see opportunities that a human can't actually see.
Yeah, well, it takes away the fun of all the keyboard bangers, right? We remember those days.
I am pretty sure the keyboard manufacturers are not happy about that. That's for sure.
You bet. So, there you go. So, the amazing thing is, from a perspective of personal finance as well, technology has kind of helped enable a lot of stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think on the technology side, I think a lot of consumer-facing things such as blogs, podcasts, videocasts such as this, where we can actually talk about it and then actually get it out a very low-cost distribution method. And because of it, people can actually get access to real information, unfiltered, third-party information. Whereas previously, they'd be looking at the mainstream media, mainstream magazines, and newspapers, where they get some information, but not really the pros and cons that people really need to know about when you're buying something. And that's what ends up happening is when people buy something, they'll always ask their friends, hey, what do you think about this, air conditioning unit or this car? Because there's really no place that gives you, a central idea of rating, cars and, air conditioning units and things like that. So obviously, same thing in the financial space. There's never been anything like that. But now with blogs, people have access to it. People are writing. People that have passion for personal finance. They're writing really good in-depth pieces about what products are good, what products are not good, and what you should actually do as far as personal finance is concerned.
You bet. I mean, as we've talked about before, you get the negative series, a set of news, because these guys aren't constrained by the fact that they're marketing, their advertising or their money revenues are coming in from the people whose products they review, which is for newspapers a big problem because they can't diss a product because the guy's giving a big center page ad.
Right, and that's what I've noticed usually is when a product comes out in a newspaper or a magazine, they'll talk about the 3 highlights of the product, but then they'll say, well, it really is up to the consumer if he wants it. And they don't really talk about, what are the negative downsides. And I think every product has its, pros and cons. It just depends on the context of the individual. And that's something that's been missing. And I think now we're going to see that because of, technology, YouTube. Now you can post this video on YouTube. And I'm going to see, I would imagine, more and more of these things coming out. More people, giving product reviews. I mean, if you take a look at the U.S. and Europe, if a new microphone were to come out or a new product comes out, there'll be 50 people that will talk about that product, give them a little, quick intro on YouTube, or just kind of talk about it. Whereas here, it's slowly happening, and I think we'll see that, when the new product comes out, actually from LIC now, the entire blogging community kind of talks about it. So I think that's something very unique that's happening and is changing.
That's true, and you got personalities now as well. So you got a Manish, your namesake from Jago Investor, and people like Subramaniam, who does Subramani.com, and the whole. You've got the personality-driven blogging rather than the names. Like you don't want you earlier used to think of a Ratan Tata or a Birla, or these are the guys who
Right.
build big companies. Now you've got the small guy who really knows his stuff coming in as a big blogger.
Right, exactly. And then I think that's the quality is just much, much better. And I think that's what people now realize. It's about really two things. And this is something that we always talk about within our company. It's about, simplicity and full transparency and giving people what they want. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think that's what's happening. We're seeing people kind of being very transparent about products, giving it in very, usable information. And I think that's what's changing more so. And then also a lot of these technologies on forums, so people can kind of rate products, people can, get on there and talk about it. I think that's something that's going to be evolving. That'll happen in the next, 6 to 18 months, my guess, and people can kind of rank where things are. And I think that'll be a big thing as well.
You bet, and I mean, this is a smooth transition into our next topic, which is now because of all this information, you find a shift from people's desires to have just advisors. I mean, just distributors of products, and they've as you said, they've started to move into an advisory framework because now there's so much information available. You can't just distribute, right?
Right. And that's the funny thing I always thought when I first came out to India was they would, these advisors they would call themselves distributors. Even today when we talk to people, I'll ask them, hey, are you a financial advisor? Maybe this is how our product can work or help you. They'll say, no, I'm a distributor. And the reality is I think distributor is an old term, and I think it really is not adding any value. And I think when you move to, personal finance, financial advisory, independent financial advisors, they're really giving real information. And I think that's where this technology is helping them, because they can go onto a website, they can get information, and they can talk intelligently to the customer. Previously, they would basically find out about a new FPO or a new, IPO for a new mutual fund offering, and they would just go to the customer and say, buy it. And they wouldn't have any information. And the reason why is because they were getting probably 2-3% from, the distributor. So they were making good money, and they were basically just passing it on. They were basically just a sales channel. They weren't adding additional value. And I think that's what's happening now. The way SEBI has kind of formed it is saying, we need to give these advisors additional information. We need to basically arm them with, they can be able to give real information to the consumer. And the way to do that is really kind of cut the fees. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but when you cut the fees, then people are no longer, held to the, distributors as like where they get their main source of information. So now they have to kind of go out there and find information that they can present to the consumer.
You bet. I recently got a lot of what happens is the mindset has changed. Earlier, what used to happen was they used to get a certain percentage of the assets that they brought on. So you would get 2%, right? So if you brought in 50 lakhs, these guys would make 1 lakh as commissions. So the problem is now they're still trying to work back into the same mindset. So I have a few advisors who realized there's no entry load anymore. They can't get those 2%. So they actually go and try to charge the same 2% to the end customer directly. So what happens is the end customer now, because he's directly paying for it, it's not part of the same check, right? It's not a commission. So he's kind of saying, listen, if I invested 40 lakhs, you're going to take 80,000. If I invested 50 lakhs, you're going to take 1 lakh. What's the difference? You do the same amount of work for me, right? So it's a different model. They have to actually grow up and kind of evolve an actual advisory module where you pay for the service render. It doesn't have to depend on the the volume of transaction.
Right, and I think that's the thing. It's transparency. Previously they were getting paid that 2%, and the customer didn't even know about it.
Right.
And so the advisor was happy. Now he has to actually present the customer with the, upfront saying, hey, you need to pay for my services. Then that customer goes, well, why do I really need this? And I think that's where, people are coming out with, looking at blogs, looking at, getting additional information so they can go to their customer and say, you know what, Mr. Customer, here's your asset allocation report. Here's where your different schemes are. And here is what I think you should do over the next 1 year. Whereas previously, the distributor would only talk about, well, this is the new, mutual fund offering that you should get into. Why? Because, and the thing is why? Well, because the reality is because that distributor was going to get 2%. That's the reality.
Actually, 6% if you look really far back, because at I think 2005 or 2006, they were offering 6% for IPOs to the distributor.
Wow.
So
There you go.
I think Reliance Equity was one of the funds that used this. They got 5,000 crores as subscription. They paid 300 crores as distributor commission. That was just, that was the peak of those years. It's like, the
Yeah.
bankers in the US probably miss 2005.
Right.
The
Yeah,
distributors in
exactly. So I
India.
mean, and I think that's what's good is it's changing. Unfortunately, people don't like change. Nobody likes change. So it's kind of reworking the industry. And as long as the customer is happy, that's the main thing. And there is no customer that can say that he doesn't like the system. Why would he? Because all of a sudden he gets full transparency to what's happening. And that's the main thing is I think that's what's good about the regulatory environment is they're looking at the consumer, at least at the equity level.
True.
Now there's a whole nother Pandora's box with insurance and what's happening with UWebs. And I'm guessing that's another topic for another video cast because that could take maybe hours.
I tell you, man, but that'll be a fantastic topic to discover. I mean, there's so much in there that
Yep.
deserves mention. But let's move on. I mean, there's this other piece that's really interesting at least when we come from this algo trading standpoint. So I guess it's exciting enough for us, but for everybody else, it's the DE Shaw and Reliance tie-up that happened recently. What do you think, Manish? What do you think it brings to the table?
I mean, I think that just shows how much we love finance and technology because both of us, the minute it was announced, we kind of talked about it. I saw it pop up on my RSS feed Sunday night, and I actually emailed somebody that I know within Reliance, and I just asked him about it, and he kind of said, yeah. And then the next morning on Monday, it hit the papers, and it was all over the press, and it was just amazing. And I mean, just for people that don't know, DE Shaw is a very large algorithmic trading firm in the U.S., and nobody really knows exactly what kind of trading they do. I mean, they do some high-frequency trading. They probably do some, looking at technicals from, 15,000 different angles. But they're a very large company. And, now they're apparently partnering with Reliance Industries. And my guess is, like everybody talking about it, Reliance Industries allows them getting access to distribution. They've got over 600 retail outlets, and they don't have any sort of financial services company. That all is, during the split between Mukesh and Anil Ambani. Anil Ambani took all of the financial services assets, such as Reliance Money, Reliance Mutual Fund. But now I believe, I guess some sort of peace offering is happening. And with this deal, it allows him to get into the financial services space. So now the question is he going to do something big? And the answer is probably yes, because when they do something, it's always big. The question is, what are they going to do?
That's true. D. Shaw is actually one of those. I read about him first in one of those interviews. There's a book called Stock Market Wizards by Jack Schwager, and in that they talked about how David Shaw was this guy who taught quantitative trading strategies, and he was so secretive that kind of inspired me to go and say, listen, if he's so secretive, there's something more in this. Than something else, and that's what got me attracted to quant or the concept of algorithmic trading in a certain way. But what the strange thing is, algo trading in its infancy in India, and really mostly institutions are using it. D. Shaw's tie-up seems to be more like a retail tie-up. Do you think they're trying to get into ETFs or mutual funds or something like that?
Yeah, I would imagine that's what they're probably going to do. They're going to go down that path. They want to have all the products in-house. There's no point in Reliance Industries, distributing other people's product. They might as well do, the entire mutual fund space from scratch. So they might as well have, ETFs, and of course regular mutual funds as well. And I really do believe it's more on the retail side. I would also imagine there's probably some piece of it where, they're going to manage, probably, the family's money as well. It's probably going to be a proprietary, prop up, family office type situation for D.E. Shaw and the Ambani family. But I really do believe that the heart of it is really going after the retail segment. And there's a lot of stuff happening. I mean, I was talking to someone recently, and he didn't give me the name, but he said some very large corporate house in India is going to be launching a very large retail platform on the order of something like a mint.com. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. I think over the next 6 to 18 months, we're going to see a lot of stuff around, financial services, and I hope a lot of it's around transparency as well. Really giving the consumer the information, and if the consumer has enough time, he can do, his own homework. If not, then he can work with an advisor that's very transparent, and really give people the real information that they need.
You bet. I mean, look forward to it. I think there's so many angles to this deal that can. I mean, you could talk about a quantitative giant like D. Shaw. You talk about a giant in pretty much every other aspect like Reliance, and you could pull out a ton of things. I hope, I hope against hope, but I hope they make the internet cheaper in India as well. But that's a far cry right now. But
a little known fact is Jeff Bezos of Amazon used to work at D.E. Shaw, and that's where he got his first job was at D.E. Shaw, and then I guess he must have approached David Shaw about starting this company about selling books on the web, and he actually was not really that interested in it. So then that's when Jeff Bezos basically went on his own and started what is now just a mammoth company. I mean, it's beyond just books. I mean, we both know on the technology side they've got this whole when we talk about cloud computing today, these guys were doing cloud computing 3 years ago, provisioning of services in real time. And so now this Amazon Web Services is huge juggernaut when it comes to, cloud deployment of, applications and companies.
You bet. In the end, it's just the fact that, David Shaw thinks of it as one of his worst trades ever, not getting in, right?
Probably.
Yeah, but he's made enough money as it is. He's a big philanthropic guy. I mean, he's not as well known for his philanthropy as Buffett is, perhaps, but he's been doing a lot of stuff in terms of research and a lot of other things. So, love to talk some more about this. I guess once we get more details, there'll be more juicy stuff to talk about.
Yeah, no, I would imagine as this deal kind of forms. I believe it was just just a MOU that was signed, but I'm sure over the next 6 months we're going to hear more information about it and how they're going to actually enter. And I actually do hope that they kind of do something big. I mean, if you look at the cell phone industry in India, it was really Reliance that really kicked it off. Everybody else was kind of doing stuff, but it really took someone like Reliance to kind of just break open the market. And I think same thing in financial services. There's a lot of stuff, and sadly a lot of it's misinformation. And I know, hopefully these guys can kind of come out and say, okay, let's really open up the market. And I think if you're more transparent, then you can get, a larger market share of, what's happening out there.
You bet. Oh, man, there you go. I say that quite often. You bet. But that has to be a brilliant piece to end the conversation. I think that was great, Manish. We should do more of these. And
yes, we should definitely. It was good talking to Deepak, and I definitely expect to do more of this. And as more and more stuff happens in this space, it may not be as infrequently as we're planning on doing it now. Once a month, maybe it may happen more often. Let's just see how the space progresses.
Brilliant. And thanks everyone for listening. This was Conversations with Manish Jain. As a disclosure, there is no commercial relationship between our companies. Manish is a great all-round guy and a fantastic friend. We've been, we've been in the same space talking for ages. And it's lovely to have him on the show. Thanks, Manish.
All right. Thanks again. Take care, Deepak.
Cheers.